lived was all irrigated. If it wasn't irrigated, it would have been a desert. The irrigated it was one of the best productive areas agriculturally in the world. And but anyway, and so there was on the river that came down. The rivers came down out of the mountains. The snow melt, and they had reservoirs and dams, and so that we'd have irrigation water all summer, because it never rained in the summertime. In fact, it was once in a great while we'd get a rain in the summertime that would just a little rain, and it would ruin the peach crop oftentimes. It'd get, the peaches would get rot around the pit, and if it rained in the summertime at the wrong time of year. But anyway, we go up to the dam once in a while as an outing to go up there, and you drive up the river, and there's a dam, and the water had come shooting out. And down below the dam, they had a swinging bridge across the river. You could walk out across that river. And normally, you went out there and it would sway a little bit. Well, when my Uncle Amos would walk out there, if you were with him, you would get a real ride, make a car seasick almost. And then he'd get out there and jump on it a little bit. Really make it go what?
Did you see your Uncle Amos a lot, Grandma?
Yeah, we would usually go out quite often. On Sunday afternoon, we'd go out. They lived about 4 miles from where we lived, out in the country, and we'd go out and visit him a little bit.
Now he wasn't the one. He never served in World War I, right?
No, that was my my father had. Well, he had 3 half-brothers. Father had been married before he married my grandmother, and his wife died, and he had 3 sons, but I only ever knew one of them. The other 2, I think they kind of, the mother died, and I guess they were in their teens or early 20s then, and one of them went in World War I, and he was killed in the war. But anyway, and then my Uncle Amos, that was the older brother that was 6 feet 4 or 5 and probably weighed 250 pounds at least. Big man. I mean, he wasn't fat. He was big. And he's the one who operated the road grader and graded all the dirt roads around town, outside the town there. But anyway, after he was drafted into the Navy in World War I, and so they called him to go to France, and he was on a ship ready to sail out of San Francisco Bay on his way to France. And my grandfather had written a letter to the President of the United States. and said, you know, I've given one son to the war, now you're taking my second one or something. Anyway, the president got the letter, I guess about the same time that the ship was leaving San Francisco Bay. And so the president of the United States, probably one of his aides, sent a cable telegram to exempt him from military service. And so they telegraphed the ship just as it was about to cross into the Pacific Ocean from the bay. And so the ship stopped, they sent a launch out, they got my uncle off and brought him back.
Grandma, was the other brother that had been killed, was that the doctor?
He was studying to be a doctor. He had not completed his medical training when he was drafted. And so they took him into the medics.
Okay.
And he was basically acting as a doctor in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd been out on the front taking care of the wounded and helping to transport them back in France. And he'd been out there many times, and he was out there this one day. And they brought him back in, and he hadn't had any sleep for probably 20 hours, and so they said, you know, go to your tent and sleep. And he went to his tent, and a wild shell from the Germans hit the tent and killed him. And I think there was one more shot that day, and they called a truce. And he was that close to being through with all of the military action that he was killed.
What was his name?
Gordon. And he was one of the closest in age, the brother closest in age to my father. My father was the youngest. My grandfather had been married before, and his wife died, and they had 3, I think, sons. I only ever met one of them. And he must have been at least 15 years older than my father.
And your dad was too young to see any action in World War I.
He was too young for World War I and just too old for World War II.
Wow, lucky.
And I think that was a convenient age.
Yes.
However, he volunteered as, and one day a week, all during World War II, he went and sat in a tower and identified any airplanes that were flying in their airspace. And they had these towers all along the west coast. And
Did he ever see any of those incinerary bombs that you were telling us about?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
There were some people in our town that saw them floating over our town.
Oh my goodness, that's
And-
scary.
No.
But I think that was probably the last time the news media ever cooperated with the war effort. And the news media never reported those. And so the Japanese thought, well, they're not doing any good. And because there were many, many Japanese people in California. Well, they had all been put into concentration camps because they were farm laborers, and many of them were real good strawberry growers and had farms and things, and but nobody knew which of those Japanese people were loyal to the United States and which were not. And probably most of them were loyal to the United States. But all the Japanese people on the West Coast were put in concentration camps.
Grandma, how old were you when
What?
How old were you when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor?
That was in 42, wasn't it?
41.
41. I was born in 31. So I would have not been quite 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
No, I would have been 10 years old. But I remember we came out of church on Sunday morning
Mm-hmm.
and found out that Pearl Harbor had been attacked. And
Did you hear it on the radio?
what?
Did you hear it on the radio?
I don't know. I heard I heard it from the neighborhood kids because my parents weren't telling us.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
I don't think they, but I had visions because my parents very seldom let us go to a movie. And, because my parents felt the movies were kind of immoral. But they did let us go to Shirley Temple, but then they showed previews of Gone with the Wind and at intermission time.
Oh.
How my mother was so disgusted. It's a children's movie, and they showed other movies, and so.
He's gonna think you
But
hate.
anyway, I had seen some on the newsreel in the intermission time. They would show of the Japanese going through in China and what they did.
Ew. They just put that in the movies?
Oh yeah,
Wow.
and
Well, it was on the news, Lena. It wasn't a
See,
movie about it.
here it is. It's a children's movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Children's movie.
Yeah, a children's movie, and they're showing that kind of garbage at intermission time.
Mhm.
That was, I think, the last time my mother ever let us go to the movies. And
Did it make you did it make you feel really scared, or did it make you feel really, like, patriotic?
I think I was scared.
Right.
And so when we came out of church and Pearl Harbor had been attacked by the Japanese,
Mm-hmm.
I had a vision of the Japanese going down through the streets of China, pulling people out of their houses,
Right.
and murdering them and all. I mean, it was propaganda stuff too, from those previews.
Well, it could have come to that. Do you think, Grandma?
What?
It could have come to that if...
Well, some of them, I mean, I guess some of it really did happen, but
Mhm.
they, I think, were exaggerated, probably. And so I had visions that the Japanese were going to come down the streets of Turlock, little old insignificant Turlock, and start pulling people out of their houses and murder them and all this. I was scared. I was really scared. But nothing happened that day, and nothing the next day, and nothing the next day. Pretty soon you kind of forget about it, and go on with life, but one of the things that the Japanese did, they sent up these incinerary bombs and their balloons out in the ocean off the ships, and they would float in with the natural winds in across California. And California in the summertime particularly is very dry. No rain in the summertime at all. And they would start fires. But the news media cooperated with the government. That's probably the last time they ever did. And they never published any of these fires or anything about it. And so the Japanese thought, well, they're not working. So they quit sending them in.
Well, that was kind of a victory for West Coast America and Canada, I guess.
I mean, they see, the West Coast, you have the seacoast area, and then you have the Coast Range, which is a low range of mountains. It gets maybe up to 1,000 feet in some places, maybe even a little higher. And then you have a valley, the Great Central Valley of California, which is about 700 miles long and about from 50 to 100 miles wide. And then you have the Sierra Nevada mountains, which go up about 8,000 feet. And these incinerary balloons that they sent over would float in high enough that would go over the Coast Range and cross the Central Valley and then hit the Sierra Nevadas, which were wooded, very forested, and with a lot of good timbers that could be and start fires.
Well, it was kind of a good plan on the Japanese part.
And actually it worked, except the news media, which I don't think you'd ever get the news media to be quiet on something like that today, cooperated with the government, and they never reported any of these fires. So the Japanese, who had people who were kind of spies within our country, never found out about it, that they were actually working, and so they quit doing it.
Well, bummer.